What's up, guys? Today's episode is going to be all about pro audio, or pro-er audio than the typical standard DJ rig. A lot of you guys, every time I put up a production gig log, you always want to know, what does it take to get into the live sound industry? I'm going to be honest with you, it takes a lot of time and a lot of money. I've been doing this almost 10 years now, and I'm still, even in a small state such as Arkansas, I'm still at the very bottom of the totem pole, and I've got a pretty decent rig. It's nothing that is, I would say, arena grade, but it has fulfilled a couple of riders. It is rider friendly, I guess you would say, but it's still nothing to write home about. Now, if an A-list artist came to town and they were looking for a production company to fulfill their rider, that would not be me. What I'm doing is I'm doing small fairs, festivals, college events, really B or C list talent that may have been popular once before or is slowly on the come up. Now, with this rig, we've done people such as 3-6 Mafia, Yin Yang Twins, Judah and the Lion, Joel Anderson, just to name a few, and the list keeps getting bigger every year as we kind of grow into our industry or in our certain market. Before you load the comment section up with, "This is a whole bunch of entry-level crap," I don't disagree with you, especially the pro guys that are probably going to watch this video. I don't disagree. I am saying that this is a starting point if you are looking to get started. I would say what I have is the bare minimum of what you need to try to get your foot in the door in the live sound industry, because it takes a lot. Now, I am going to try to break this down into different series, just because when you start to wrap your mind around what it really takes to put on a concert and production, it doesn't just start with audio. You've got to worry about how your power is going to get there and your power distribution, your cabling, your stage presence, whether it be your stage networking with audio cables and sometimes video, sometimes lighting. It's a lot more than what you would think. This is going to be simply a tour of my audio rig. We're going to start with speakers, we're going to go into subwoofers, and then we're going to cover the amps. The next episode, I'll show you kind of what it takes to get the audio source to the actual speakers itself. So we'll cover things like mixers, stage snakes, and the networking behind it. Then we'll go into lighting and so on and so forth. So for today, we're just going to cover what I have in my shop, which is a JBL audio rig with some EV power behind it. Now, what I am going to be doing is I'm going to be keeping a running tally of what it kind of, the overall basic cost of what it has cost me to purchase all this gear. First off, we have our JBL mains, which are JBL VRX 932 LA constant curvature arrays. Now, the term line array is used in conjunction with these boxes, but that's simply not it. A true line array, you have the ability to aim and point each cabinet exactly where you want to go. With something like a constant curvature box, it's already set. Set it and forget it. You can't really adjust the geometry of how the speaker throws. Now, there are some options out there that you can kind of manipulate these speakers and get them where you want them, but that kind of would void the warranty, and if something catastrophic happened, you would be in a lot of trouble, because it's not how JBL recommends that you fly their boxes. Anytime you take that into account, you always got to worry about your insurance and the worst that could possibly go wrong. Once you start putting items and things over people's heads, you run into a lot bigger stakes if something goes wrong, so make sure your insurance is up to snuff. Now, in each of these cases, I have 2 of the JBL speakers. All in all, I have a total of 12. What that allows me to do is do a hang of 5 per side with 2 front fills. After you get over 5 or 6 with these speakers in particular, because they are a constant curvature box and you can't change the angle or the throw of the box, you get one that's throwing up, at the ceiling almost, and one that's pretty much pointing directly down on the floor. That's something that we don't want, so we keep it at 5 for our outdoor shows. For inside shows, we can kind of get away with 4, and then we use 2 of them as front fills at the front of the deck of the stage. Now, there is a plus side to using a box like the JBL VRX as opposed to a traditional, point source box is that you can pole mount these. You can throw, you know, these arrays or constant curvature boxes onto a speaker stand and use them 2 at a time. So let's say that you've got a weird room with a narrow angle or a short distance to the floor, a short trim height. These work out pretty well in most situations because you can toss them on a pole, put them on a subwoofer, and there's your PA. You don't necessarily have to fly these all the time. Now these are quite simple to put together. As you can see, they have handles on each side. Those handles double as the pins and couplers. Spin this one up. This is the coupler that's going to allow another speaker to sit on top of it, and then we pick the whole thing up from the bottom, or from the top. These pins are super important. You don't want to lose them. They are made out of titanium, so they're pretty strong. This is what is going to be the building blocks of our main hang PA. So let's throw a couple on here and we'll see what 2 or 3 of them together look like. Now once we have our boxes coupled, we're going to use the array frame to tie the boxes to the truss structure itself, and then we can add on a couple more boxes once we actually have this on the truss. Now once we have our boxes in place, we're leaving that in because that really hurt. Alright, once we have our speakers in place, we're going to use what's called a span set or a steel flex to attach the speakers to the actual truss. Now, depending on where you're hanging, you may use steel shackles or whatever. I'm not going to tell you how to rig because rigging is something that I'm still in the process of learning and becoming a certified rigger. So I don't want to give you any false information because ultimately, if you take advice from me, I assume the liability and I don't want that to happen. So, I'm just going to throw this out there. Do all of this at your own risk. But I attach my speakers to the truss using a span set. They can hold a lot of weight, especially when you configure them in different ways. These boxes only weigh 53 pounds a piece. So always know the weight of your rig, especially when you're using truss or motors or genies. You always need to know what the loaded weight of your rig is. That includes the array frames. That includes any cabling that you might have. These are very important numbers because if a side inspector comes up, which very rarely happens, but it can, if you don't know the numbers of what your stuff is capable of holding, you can be shut down pretty damn fast. Looking at the back of the VRX box, you have your in and your through NL4 connectors. You also have your biamp and your passive switch if you want to run it. Passive means the box is run in full range. Biamp means you're taking 2 separate signals and sending it where it wants to go. One for the high frequency drivers, the other for the woofer located inside the box. The one thing that's cool about these boxes in particular is you have these selector switches up here at the top. It sends different voltage to certain components that allows the speaker to do different things. For instance, if we've got all of these selector switches all the way to the right, that turns this box in particular into a long throw box. Move them both to the middle, it's a mid throw box. Move both of these to the left, it turns into a short throw box.
Gosh, it's beautiful here. Just look at that yellow sun. And away off in the distance, those lovely little white clouds.
Get a drink, have a good time now. Over to paradise, paradise.
Now, for the low end, we've got 6 of these JBL STX 828 dual 18 subwoofers. They look pretty small in comparison to me, but they're huge. They're dual 18s. They slam really, really hard. We've got 6 of them, which we push for hip-hop music and things of that nature. They sound great, especially indoors is where they shine when coupled together. We've got 6. We're looking to add 2 more on by the end of the year, so that will bring our grand total to 8. They're on the same dolly carts that I built for my normal EKX single 18 woofers. They work out great. You know, it's really easy to wheel these around. Now there are some holes on the back of them where you can put a wheel kit directly onto the subwoofer. I find that it makes it rattle a lot more, and if I can leave these dudes stacked and not have to worry about unstacking them or stacking them when I get to the show, it works out a lot better. Subs are subs. These are great. There are better options out there, but there are a lot worse options out there as well. I've been relatively happy with them, never had any problems with blowing cones or driving them a little too hard. I've had good luck with them. They come highly recommended. Now, located in my amp rack, I have 4 Electro Voice CP4000S amplifiers. Now, you might be saying, John, your entire system is JBL. What's up with the Electro Voice amplifiers? And to put things really simply and honestly, I had these from my old EVQRX rig, what I sold to buy this. And power is extremely expensive, especially when you get into what it would take to power this rig if I had to start all over. Having matching amps to your subs isn't something that's necessary, but I would say having all matching amps to power your speaker rig, especially if you have the same speakers, is a good idea. The one thing that sets this apart is the Drive Rack 360 by DBX. What it allows me to do when tuning my PA is input my subs, my mains, and what amplifiers I have to really give me the best bang for buck combo. So just because I don't have JBL processing going to my speakers, the Drive Rack automatically picks that up and it gives me the best signal to go to whatever output source I want. Now, I would say that like a Crown XTI 6000 is something that would be comparable to these amps, but again, I haven't had any complaints on it. These amps have never let me down, and they're super lightweight in comparison to an XTI amp. I would much rather just stick with what I got until it's time to replace them when 1 or 2 or all of them die. Now, I've got this same amp rack duplicated, so just as you see here with the 4 amps and the Drive Rack, I've got the same thing on the other side. What this allows me to do is put 1 on the left side of the stage, 1 on the right side of the stage, so I don't have as many long cable runs. Now, with my patch bay that I have here in front, it allows me to have 4 NL4 outputs and my 4 inputs. Typically, this is how it'll go. On the far side, we'll go left, right, and sub. So the 4th input is empty. It's free. I can do with it whatever I may. I may stick another amp on here if I've got some outfills or delay stacks, something like that. And then for the NL4 breakouts, we've got a main 1, a main 2, a sub 1, and a sub 2. Now I'm using 2 amplifiers to drive my 5 speakers to my PA, 1 amplifier to drive a pair or 3 of my subwoofers, and then the bottom amp, I kind of use it as an auxiliary. It can either fire another pair of subwoofers, it can fire the front fills, it doesn't really matter. Depending on what room I'm in is when that 4th amp comes into play. So all in all, maximum power wise, we're looking at 2100 watts of power per channel per amp. So if we add it up, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, about 16.5 thousand watts of maximum power output. Now that's not what I run it out, but that's what you can get out of a professional series amplifier like this. Now what I will say with professional series amplifiers, what you get what you pay for. Once again, these amps ain't cheap, and they don't sound cheap. They sound really, really good. If you were to go with a lesser brand, let's say a a PV or, you know, something in that class, I'm not going to say that you're going to get the best results. One thing that I will tell you is that once you get into the amplifiers, a lot of them have a lot of power claims that they cannot make. You know, some Behringer amps claim to have 6,000 watts of power in one amp at a price of $250. I'm just here to tell you that that is a lie. Don't believe the hype. Once you get into amplifiers such as Crown, EV, QSC, people that are proven with their power, you're going to have a lot more reliable source on how much power you're actually putting out. So that wraps up the amp rack. Once again, we've got 4 CPS 4000 amps. We've got a drive rack, and I'm even going to include the cost of what it took to make the patch bay. The patch bay is really necessary on making sure you get in and out efficiently. Also, you don't want to be back there during the middle of a show trying to dig around if something goes wrong. If you've got everything right here labeled, you know where everything is going, you know your signal path, it's going to make for a lot cleaner execution of your show, and it's going to make a lot easier for troubleshooting if something goes wrong. So that's going to wrap up today's episode on the bare minimum of what it takes to get your foot in the door for live sound. Now, once again, like I said, this isn't the best and this isn't the end all be all, but I feel like it's kind of the lowest you can kind of go to get your foot in the door, especially when doing crowds, let's say, of a couple thousand people. Now, once I outgrow this, I will get another rig. I won't sell this rig because I feel like it still serves a purpose, but I'll just get something meant for larger scale. Until I get to that point, I simply just pass it on to people that I know can handle the job, hoping that they'll either have me on to work it or B, give me a little kickback for sending them the business. To wrap things up today, we covered the JBL VRX 932 constant curvature arrays, below them the STX 828 subwoofers, and then powering and processing the whole thing, we have Electro Voice CP 4000S amplifiers and the drive rack 360 PA processor. So this right here, right there, is kind of the cost, the retail cost of all this stuff. I'm sure you can find it used on another market, but this is what it's going to cost you if you wanted to duplicate what I have. Like I said in the beginning, it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of money, and getting into this is, one of my good friends told me, it's just like the mafia. It's easy to get in and it's hard to get out. Once you try to sell this stuff on the used market, you're going to be lucky to get 60% of what you paid for it in the first place. So just keep that in mind. If you don't really see this as a liable business option or business venue, it might be better to just go work for somebody else instead of sinking your time and your money into building your own. Before you get out of here, I would appreciate you hitting that subscriber button, also the notification bell to the right of it. That way you can know when new content is posted on the channel. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, leave them down in the comment section below. If you've got something that you want to ask me one-on-one, you can shoot me an email. djwoopig@gmail.com is where you can reach me. You can also find me on social media at djwoopig across all sources. So for today, guys, thanks again for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Gosh, it's beautiful here. Just look at that yellow sun. And away off in the distance, those